Hi, it is Priscilla, and I am back again. And this is chapter 2 of Women Who Run with Wolves. And like I shared in chapter 1, chapter 2 is by far my most favorite chapter. One of the reasons it's my favorite chapter is because it just does something to me. Like, it stirs me, it makes me uncomfortable, it it bothers the heck out of me, it affects my sleep, but in a good way. We live on this earth, and sometimes it doesn't make sense. It's like, why are we all here? Just to wake up, go to sleep, wake up, go to sleep. Work simply can't be enough, and some of us have families, and those families change. It doesn't seem like enough. It seems like there has to be a greater purpose. And I find with this book, it forces me to look for a greater purpose. It helps me to find direction. And this is my third time reading chapter 2. Each time I read it, I gain new insight. And this time when I read it, it took me several days to get ready to make this video. And I truly hope I do it justice, because I had to just sit with the information, and information I do not remember getting the first time. Of course, some of it, but some of it was new. So in any case, this is chapter 2. And actually, well, let me go ahead and read the title of the chapter. So chapter 2 is called Stalking the Intruder. And I want to actually start with a quote from the notes. It says, "The pattern of surrendering one's core life may have begun in childhood. Fostered by caretakers who wanted the child's gifts and loveliness to augment the caretaker's own emptiness and hunger. To be trained thusly gives erroneous power to the innate predator and sets one out to be prey for others. Until one's instincts are put back in proper order, a woman so raised is exceedingly vulnerable to being overwhelmed by the unspoken and devastating psychic needs of others. Generally, a woman with good instincts knows the predator is insinuated nearby. When she finds herself involved in a relationship or situation that causes her life to become smaller rather than larger." Let me reread that. Generally, a woman with good instincts knows the predator is insinuated nearby when she finds herself involved in a relationship or situation that causes her life to become smaller rather than larger. I feel like the notes, they pretty much sum it all up. This is what I mean by it just stirs me, disturbs me, makes me pause, makes me think. There are too many women, and myself included, when I was in my 20s. I remember being engaged, and I truly believed that I loved this fella, and he was so generous, and I love that part about him, because he truly believed in spoiling me. I want to be spoiled. But in any case, he was extremely controlling. And what I had learned in my childhood was to be seen and not heard. And oftentimes that did show up in my relationship. So when we were out and about, I let him take the lead. And I often found myself quiet even when I felt like I could have handled the situation better than he handled it. And that affected me. And then there came a time where I could no longer tolerate that type of behavior. I mean, I don't necessarily need to over talk a man, but I respect that if someone has more knowledge or they're more skilled in a certain area, the relationship is better if we acknowledge each other's skills and encourage them, you know, rather than seek to dominate and control and just try to make someone feel less than who they are, you know. So in any case, like I said, I do love that last part. You know that you're in trouble if you're in a relationship where you feel smaller than you are. It is certainly something to think about. Okay, so that was the notes. Let's get to some of the quotes that I have pulled out. Or rather, no, let's start with the story itself. So the story is Bluebeard. Why do I keep saying Bluebeard? I even remember when I talked about chapter 1, I said Bluebeard. It's Bluebeard. Bluebeard. So here's this man. He had a blue beard. And here he was out with his family. So this woman, she had 3 daughters. He took them out on a picnic. And, you know, so there was a lot of fun to be had, great food, laughter, everything. The older sisters were somewhat suspicious of him, but because they were having such a great time, they commented, you know, that, okay, maybe he's not all that bad. The younger sister, she began to say to herself, okay, his beard is not all that blue, because she was growing more and more attracted to him. She started focusing upon the positive things about him, like calling him charismatic. And so what happened, he saw that she was smitten or taken with him or attracted to him, and he went ahead and asked her to marry him. They then move into his castle, and you know, what young girl doesn't want to be swept away? Often that is our dream. We think, you know, we're going to find this man and he's going to save us and buy us this big old house, and you know, all we need to do is give him some children and we'll take care of the house. You know, we got this from fairy tales, and it's a goal, it's a dream of many. So in any way, she attained her goal, she attained her dream. She had this rich husband, this big, beautiful home, and there came a day where he needed to travel. And as he was going to travel, he decided to leave his keys with her. He said, you can roam throughout all of our home, this big grand home, but do not go in one room. And being the obedient wife that she was not going to go into the one room. So he leaves. Her sisters are there, and she tells them, wow, you know, my husband, he's so generous. He said we can throw a party, we could eat lavishly, but just don't go in one room. Her older sisters, you know, that just made them curious. Don't go in one room. Well, we must check out this one room. And so, of course, they made a game of it and they searched the rooms, only to find that there was a room full of wives who also did not obey him. Upon returning, when he realized that she had broken the one rule that he'd given her, he told her that she needed to come and die, that he was going to kill her tonight. And she quickly responded by saying, let me go prepare myself for my death. And her preparation was simply to call to her sisters, to call to their brothers to help rescue her from this situation. Fast forward, the brothers do come. They murder the husband, and they leave his carcass for, you know, the birds. This story just makes me think, because you don't hear the mother's voice in this story. And when I think of other literature that I read written around this time, the time the folklore was written, I just think, okay, this was a mom. You don't hear about the father at all, so he must have passed away. And the brothers likely they have their other wives. They have wives and they're outside of the home. So she has 3 daughters inside the home that she has to care for. And she has to find a way to provide for. So at this time, or at that time, the goal was to marry off the daughters. The older daughters, being suspicious of him, they didn't want to marry him. But the young daughter, being naive, was easily impressed by him and began to focus on what she believed to be positive about him. So her naivety opened her up to that. And the mom, being distant, or like I said, probably focusing on marrying off her daughters to have one less mouth to feed, was not as aware, or maybe it didn't matter. You know, I meet too many women who say nothing's perfect, as if to say, you know, different things about a marriage. You know, I won't speculate. We all, I guess, know what we can tolerate, or, you know, there's no 100% happy is what I'm being told. So in any case, the point is, or what I'm trying to get at, is her older sisters, their instincts warned them about him. But the younger sister, her instincts weren't yet in tune. The mom, disconnected, allowed it to happen. But, you know, it all prevailed because, well, initially though, when she found that key, her first goal was to scour that key to keep it from bleeding. She was willing to go back into this marriage and act as if she hadn't seen those corpses. She was willing to act as if she hadn't seen the monstrous side of her husband, because she wanted to maintain the title of wife. She wanted to continue to live in this castle. She wanted to continue to have this rich husband. So she would have closed her eyes to it had he just believed her when she said she did not go into the room. You know, she was willing to live a lie if he only had trusted her lie. And that part is quite sobering. You know, the things that go unsaid, untalked about, unresolved in an effort to maintain what we have. So we're still at a time where we know there are many people who stay in relationships because of various things, you know, and they let certain things go unsaid in order to maintain the relationship. So let's go on to another passage. It says, developing a relationship with the wildest nature is an essential part of a woman's individuation. In order to execute this, a woman must go into the dark, but at the same time, she must not be irreparably trapped, captured, or killed on her way there or back. So this just tells me we have to confront the issue. If there's a dark issue that comes up or that lives within us, we have to address it. In addressing it is how we grow our strength, is how we, it's just how we elevate our spiritual life. You can't avoid the darkness. You must walk through it. You must see it. Walk through it eyes wide open. Another passage. Psychologically, young girls and young boys are as though asleep about the fact that they themselves are prey. Although sometimes it seems life would be much easier and much less painful if all humans were born totally awake. At page 48, At the beginning of our lives, our feminine viewpoint is very naive, meaning that emotional understanding of the covert is very faint. But this is where we all begin as females. We are naive and we talk ourselves into some very confusing situations. To be uninitiated in the ways of these matters means that we are in a time of our life when we are vulnerable to seeing only the overt. I mean, some people see naive as a completely bad word, but when you are born, if you're told to trust, you trust. You know, I was raised in a Christian foundation, so the elementary school that I attended, there was a period every day where we'd go over to the church that was next door. And over there, we were rewarded for memorizing scriptures. We were rewarded for memorizing the songs and being able to sing them. And in that, or having that type of childhood, I trusted everybody. I treated people according to what they said. If they said that they were honest, okay, you're honest. Yes, I was 100% naive. Page 49. This acquiesces to marrying the monster. Page 48. Like wolf pups, women need a similar initiation, one which teaches that the inner and outer worlds are not always happy-go-lucky places. Women do not even have the basic teaching about predators that a wolf mother gives her pups, such as, if it's threatening and bigger than you, flee. If it's weaker, see what you want to do. If it's sick, leave it alone. If it has quills, poison, fangs, or razor claws, back up and go in the other direction. If it smells nice but is wrapped around metal jaws, walk on by. Oh, that's so funny. Well, that one's self-explanatory. But I'm sorry. It does speak to time has to be given to sharing these stories with the people that we love. Just sharing myths and folklores. We can't assume that people automatically know the right thing to do, because they don't, you know? So you can't assume that they know, as she says, to leave the sick alone, to run when you see fangs and razors, to, that the world is not always happy-go-lucky. You can't assume people know what you know. Page 49. This acquiescence to marrying the monster is actually decided when girls are very young, usually before 5 years of age. They are taught whether they are lovely or not. This training is why the youngest sister can say, his beard isn't really that blue. This early training to be nice causes women to override their intuitions. In that sense, they are actually purposefully taught to submit to the predator. Imagine a wolf mother teaching her young to be nice in the face of an angry ferret or a wildly diamondback rattler. That would be ludicrous, right? Because obviously that wolf pup would be wounded or worse, murdered. But this is how we raise a lot of the females, to be nice, to say hello, to give of themselves even when they don't want to, instead of asking them, well, why are you resisting? Why are, just asking the questions, because the questions are where the growth can happen. Page 50. So the faithful marriage occurs, the mingling of the sweetly naive and the dastardly unlit. When Bluebeard leaves on his journey, the young woman does not realize that even though she is exhorted to do anything she wishes, except that one thing, she is living less rather than living more. Many women have literally lived the Bluebeard tale. They marry while they are yet naive about predators, and they choose someone who is destructive to their lives. They are determined to cure that person with love. They are in some way playing house. One could say that they have spent much time saying, his beard isn't really so blue. As long as woman is forced into believing she is powerless and or is trained not to consciously register what she knows to be true, the feminine impulses and gifts of her psyche continue to be killed off. For this one is just speaking, if you're in a relationship where you feel powerless, you will continue to grow powerless. You know, the wildish side of you needs to feel powerful. When the youthful spirit marries the predator, she is captured or restrained during a time in her life that was meant to be an unfoldment. Instead of living freely, she begins to live falsely. The deceitful promise of the predator is that the woman will become a queen in some way, when in fact her murder is being planned. This is a way out of all this. There is a way out of all of this, but one must have a key. 51. The naive or injured woman is then too easily lured with promises of ease, of lilting enjoyment, of various pleasures, be they promises of elevated status in the eyes of her family, her peers, or promises of increased security, eternal love. This one is so funny. Remember when I realized I did not want to marry the guy? When I've said to friends in the past that I have a problem with the term submission, and their response usually was, then you're not ready to marry. And I said, okay. Even though in my mind, I just felt like, well, it's about waiting for the guy who doesn't need me to submit, who realizes that I have my own mind. We can have a discussion about a situation and move forward. Why do you need to lord over me? And when my family realized I wasn't going to marry the guy that I was with, their response was, oh, you just don't know how to shut up. Completely ludicrous. If you have something to say, you're meant to say it. Why is someone else's voice or information in a relationship more important than your voice in the relationship? It's completely ludicrous, you know? This is still 51. Bluebeard forbids the young woman to use the one key that would bring her to consciousness. To forbid a woman to use the key to consciousness strips away the wild woman, her natural instinct for curiosity, and her discovery of what lies underneath. Without the wild knowing, the woman is without proper protection. If she attempts to obey Bluebeard's command not to use the key, she chooses death for her spirit. By choosing to open the door to the ghastly secret room, she chooses life. 53. When women open the doors of their lives and survey the carnage There in those out of the way places, they most often find they have been allowing assassination of their most crucial dreams, goals, and hopes. They find lifeless thoughts and feelings of desires, one which were once graceful and promises are now drained of blood. Whether these hopes and dreams be about desire for relationship, desire for an accomplishment, a success, or a work of art. When there is this gruesome discovery in one's psyche, we can be sure the natural predator, also often symbolized in dreams as the animal groom, has been at work methodically destroying a woman's most cherished desires. So what I love about this story so much is it awakens you. You may have thought you were putting off your goal to become a this or that, oh, for the family, for the kids. But you have to realize that you have to find a way to make that goal happen. You have to find a way to continue to feed your spirit. If you're in a relationship where the person is saying, oh, absolutely not, you cannot do that, but your spirit knows that you must do it, then that's when you know you're in trouble.